Be confident, be bold, be authentic, but don't forget to take action. This is Ordinary to Badass, where our stories empower women to step into the spotlight of their own lives and pursue what they're truly passionate about. It's time to step into the arena and become more than just extraordinary. It's time to become a badass with your host, Marie Sonneman.
Welcome to Ordinary to Badass, episode number 233. In this episode, you are going to hear from Lynne Bowman. Lynne is the glam grandma that can teach you how to eat your veggies. She is so badass, so much spunk, and so many great things to say. Lynne has lived an adventurous life and done a lot of the things you and I would like to do. And she talks about her hard relationship that she went through and her desire to have kids and how she put that as her North Star. And then she talked about the different jobs that she just up and left, or how she up and moved to Paris. There's so many great nuggets in this episode. Definitely stay tuned. But before we get there, August 17th is the date. I cannot wait to meet with you. 6 p.m. Pacific time. Let's chat. I don't know about you, but COVID has been crazy. These last couple years have been crazy, and it can be hard to have work-life balance or just life balance in general, especially struggling with all the things, like if you have kids, dealing with the kids' school stuff, and then your work stuff, and just juggling all the things, having meals, having a life, just everything balance related. And I want to talk with you about it. It'll be just you and me and other Ordinary to Badass podcast listeners, and let's just get personal. Let's find out what's going on. Let's hear from each other, because oftentimes we think we are on an island of our own, which isn't actually the case. But if people aren't talking about it, then it's hard to know that you're going through the same thing that so many other badasses are going through. So join me August 17th, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Check out the Ordinary to Badass Facebook group to get details, or just DM me on Instagram at Ordinary to Badass. With that, let's get to the episode. Welcome to Ordinary to Badass. Whether you're ordinary or badass, I am so glad you're here. Today's guest is Lynne Bowman. Lynne, thank you so much for being here. Excited to have you on the show.
I would be here just for the name of the podcast. I love it so much. And I'm really happy to be with you. Let's do this.
Yes.
Yes.
So before we go any further, I've got to ask you, do you consider yourself ordinary or badass?
I never thought I was ordinary. I mean, and I don't think anybody is ordinary. All you have to do is meet somebody for 5 minutes and find out that they are not ordinary. I mean, ordinary can be a good thing, right? We're all just humans on earth, and that's ordinary. And in that sense, right. Yeah, that's great. But I'm from a generation of women that came out punching. You know, I'm boomer. I was born in 1946. And like a lot of us, I was going to try real hard not to be left behind or kicked aside or stepped on or sat on or whatever. So I was probably cheekier than a lot of women. My mom tried to make me behave. You know, I was raised relatively well, but Marie, she died when I was 18. And I look back on that now and in my maturity so differently, because I understand that I had a freedom. I was feral in a way that few women get. I mean, so many of us are trying way too hard in our youth and in our young womanhood to please everybody and be what somebody wants. And very often it's our mother, you know, because our mothers are all from a different time and have a different agenda. But mine, and I finally was able to forgive her for this in my 30s. And I understood that by leaving me, she made me free. And So I'm out here now. Help me. I hope that my freedom and my adventures and my failures, and oh my God, they were legion. I mean, you know, I fell on my butt as many times, way more times than most people do. And some of them were just, I mean, flaming, right, just terrible. But that's how we learn. And the more you can be fearless about failure and make friends with failure, the more it just doesn't affect you anymore, except as an educational experience. So there you are. So ordinary, I don't know. But badass, yeah.
I love it. I love it. People just own it. So what do you attribute this badassery to? Like, it sounds like you've had it all your life. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I don't know if I've had it all my life, but I think it was a little bit of what I was saying, that there was no one standing over me saying, oh, you just can't, oh, no, that's for, I kind of roamed a little bit free. I was out in the country riding the wrong horses, the wrong direction, literally. I mean, in those days, we were not supervised particularly. And so I lived at the edge of the kind of a mountainous area. And so we would build forts and find snakes and literally my cousin and I would get on these grade ponies that we'd never ridden and we didn't know, and we would just ride them. And if you know anything about horses, you don't do that. you don't do that, but we did. And no one was particularly paying attention. Our parents were drinking Manhattans and playing canasta, and I don't know what they were doing, but it was a very different time insofar as how children were brought up. We walked everywhere. So, and then I also understand now as a grandma, particularly, we arrive with an agenda. We get here, whoever we are, to a very great extent. I mean, you can see it in that baby's eyes, that they're not just some little blank slate. They arrive with some kind of program about something. And I'm no expert on what that is or where they get it or anything, but I don't think we come here just a blank slate. No. So yeah, I was a cheeky kid. And also, my granddaughter said to me the other day, Mimi, I think you were ADHD when you were a kid. And I thought, you know what? Sure, maybe I was. But who knew? Back in the day, that wasn't even a thing. What I knew was that I was bored in class, bored sitting down, bored learning all the things that it's like. And I had an older brother and sister who had kind of prepped me for school and taught me most of the style. I already learned how to read and write. And so you get to school already all pumped up to do stuff, and they're just doing the same thing over and over again. And I was never I got good grades and stuff. I got by, but I was never a totally engaged student. I wanted to go play. I mean, I wanted to go, have adventures. And I will never forget sitting in a geology class in UCLA, 1965, with 500 people. And all of a sudden, just thinking, I can't do this. There's a world out there. There's life going on out there. There are motorcycles to be ridden. There are surfboards. And I'm in here doing this. Forget about it. So I dropped out after 3 semesters at UCLA and went to work, which I loved. From the beginning, I really liked somebody who's going to pay me to write, instead of me paying them to write for them. And I got a job as a production artist back in the day, because the technology was so ancient compared to what we have now. And you had to actually paint the plates that got printed in the fashion world. And so I was downtown LA doing that for an ad agency in 1966. And then I took off for Paris, which I just thought that was what every young artist was supposed to do. And I went with a one-way ticket and no phone. We didn't have phones. And so, okay, does that make a badass? Not having a phone, buying a one-way ticket? And I think back sometimes and think, how would I feel if my kid, and I have 3 kids, my kids are now in their mid-40s. What would it be like to be sending a kid off into the world now with no phone, a one-way ticket, Europe, But back then, it was when you were 18, your luggage was on the lawn, basically. You were an adult. You needed to go. And the assumption was, if you were a female 18, 20-year-old, you would marry pretty soon. So then you'd be set on that path. But I didn't. And until a bit later. And life, Marie, I mean, if you open your doors to it, it's going to come slamming in and smack you in the face in all kinds of ways. And if you don't open your doors to it, it will still do that, just sometimes later on, right? So I don't know. I just was never, I wasn't shy. And so much of life is who you meet, the connections that you make. And a couple of the connections that I made really early in life, I'm happy to say, are still connections. But boy, you don't know then. You just don't know where it's going to go.
Right.
You have no idea. At least I didn't. So, and if I think that's part of being a badass is just going, okay, bring it on. But I don't need to know everything that's going to happen. I'll just deal with whatever it is.
So good. I can't wait to dig in a little bit more. There's so many good nuggets in there. But first, will you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know you just told us some of the stuff, but you can tell us about your books and about what you're doing, what you're up to now.
So you want to know what I'm up to now? Or you want to go back? Tell me which.
Just a short bio.
Short bio. I don't have a short bio, Marie, because I'm old. I'm really old. I started work in the 60s. The first real job, big job I had, totally by accident. I had gone to work for a little cosmetic company out in the valley called RedKen Laboratories. You may know the name. If you do hair products at all, RedKen is big, huge now in the hair business, but it wasn't then. And I was thrilled to be working for a cosmetic company because I thought, oh, this can be great. And I was there about 3 weeks and walked in on a Monday morning, and everyone in the advertising department but me had been fired. So what I did was I said, okay, I got this. How crazy, but I did. I said, oh, we'll do this and we'll hire people and we'll make it all right. And so on. I was 21, right? But I thought this company was great. I was working for a woman. President of the company was a woman. I thought, yeah, we'll do this. And we did. And for 3 years, it was like this graduate course in advertising, marketing, production. I got all my vendors to teach me everything they would teach me. I was working with great folks who were supportive. And then all of a sudden, at about 25, I started thinking, wait, I'm going to wake up and be in my mid-40s, and I'll be this old maid with this great job. Who wants that? Well, looking back, any idiot would have stayed. The company went public. I would have made a ton of money. Who knows? But what I wanted, what was in my heart, was I wanted children. I wanted a family. I wanted a home. And I just was terrified that the more success I had, I think this is not uncommon in many ways with a lot of women, maybe less so now, but the more success I had in business, I was terrified that that would prevent me from having another life, from having a family, from all that side of life. So I quit. No one said to me, Lynn, don't be an idiot. Take a leave of absence, so on. No. I just walked out, said goodbye, and went to Europe again. And then, life went on, and I got an offer. I went back to North Carolina to take a job with the NBC affiliate in Wilmington, North Carolina, as a weather person, on the promise that I was going to actually be on the news desk. But I became then the worst weather person ever in the history of broadcasting for this station in North Carolina. But that led me to other places, and I got married and quickly had the 3 children that I'd always wanted and was thrilled to have, only to realize very quickly in the process of that this tall, good-looking, fast-talking guy that I had married was a veteran from Vietnam. He was a Marine who had fought in the jungle, and he he rather quickly unraveled, which is something, you may have heard in your life, in your experiences. You may have seen this more often than many. He just went nuts. And so when my kids were 2, 3, and 4, I had to run for my life and theirs. We got on a train and with just what we could carry, and came to California, to my sister's place in the Silicon Valley. And so, and this is life. How did I know that in 1980, when I landed in the Silicon Valley with my 3 little ones, 2, 3, and 4, that this was the beginning of maybe the most important revolution in American history? And it was the microcomputer being born, which was putting computer power on all of our desks and in all of our lives. There I was in the middle of it. Like, hi, I'm here to help you. But the deal was that I had to make money. I had 3 kids, no support, and I had to do the best I could financially. So to me, part of being a badass is doing what you got to do. And in my case, I had to lie a fair amount. I had to tell the daycare people that the youngest one was potty trained. No problem. Yeah, she'll be great. I had to be very coy about the fact that I even had children. I didn't tell people I had kids, because back in that day, that meant you were a housewife or you weren't a serious person, whatever. So, you create the persona that you have to create, and you do the work that you think you can do. And we were all learning together at that time, because this was a brand new industry. And just, I don't know, good luck or bad luck, it's hard to tell looking back, but my superpower sort of was communication. I had a pretty good ability to translate technology to real people talk. And that's what they needed in the Silicon Valley in 1980. They needed people to make these products approachable and understandable to folks. I mean, and back at that time, for example, executive men would not put their hands on a keyboard. They wouldn't touch them. Think about that.
Yeah,
right? But a lot of what we had to do was get people's attitudes changed so that they would put their hands on the keyboard and find the joy and power of managing the affairs. Plus, they'd always had these secretaries and assistants and everything. And so this computer revolution, part of it was making you do your own secretarial work, which now right? But back in the day, if you didn't have assistants and secretaries, you weren't anybody, right? So I don't know, it was an interesting thing to be a part of and witness, and that allowed me to raise my kids not in squalor, but we did okay. And my ex followed me, stalked me, threatened me for years. This is a story that you and your line of work have heard so many times. And ultimately also, and for those of you who don't know this, more of those veterans from Vietnam ended up dying of their own hand than died in combat ever. And they're still dying of their own hands. And that was the case with my ex-husband. He ultimately took his own life. But dealing with these experiences, however you deal with them, that's part of what makes us a badass. We survive. And I was determined to survive and be there for my kids. So we make decisions, and these decisions drive our actions and our futures. And so to me, that's a big part of it, is just decide that you are going to be healthy, which I hope we can talk a little more about. And in my case, I found out in my early 40s that I was a type 2 diabetic. So that had a lot to do with coloring my life and how I managed it and what I was interested in and so on, because I was determined that that was not going to take me down. And I think it's decisions that we make. Marie, are you with me on that?
Yes, no, absolutely. And it can be so easy to get stuck in indecision and to not make any choice at all.
Yeah.
And I feel like personally, the longer I get stuck in indecision, the harder it becomes to make any choice whatsoever. And it sounds like for you, kind of a through line is, yes, you have made decisions, one, but then two, you're also good at transitioning, which I think the unknown is usually pretty terrifying. Can you walk us through that? Like, what do you say to yourself, or how do you get yourself to take a next step, even when it's terrifying?
I think it's just assuming that I'm going to be okay. It's taking the attitude that I am going to do whatever I need to do, and that I can do whatever I need to do to get through this, whatever it is. And I can absolutely tell you that there have been times in my life when I literally stood and cried and looked in the window of what looked like it was a happy home and thought, how am I ever going to get there? How can I ever do this? But the seed is even in that, because I wanted that. I was determined that that was what I valued and wanted, even though it looked impossible, even though I was mired in this crazy, with kids and so on, and crazy acts, and and my work environment, I would like to remind you ladies who don't remember this, I was surrounded by men. I was very often the only girl in the room. And they weren't too sure that they were okay with this person, female type person, being part of their executive experience. I had to work really hard to stay on my feet in a situation where, and I had my allies and my friends, but there were plenty of people shooting at me in a metaphorical way, not like you. And there was a guy who was actually trying to shoot me, but that's different. So I think I don't know. I was focused on wanting that home. I wanted a real home, a nice home, a comfortable home with happy kids, and that the work stuff was just to support that. And I was always really clear that the kids came first, that I needed to find the support that I needed from my sister, from friends, to keep that little ship afloat, to keep the kids going forward. Because in my value system, that was the most important, and it still is. That is by far the most important thing I've done in my life or intend to do, and the source of my happiness to a very great extent. I mean, and we all have, sources of happiness, small things, dogs, horses, plants, whatever it is, running, whatever. But in my life, from a very early point, I wanted a family, and I wanted to do everything I could do to stay with them and see them through. And I'm happy to say that I think I've done it. I mean, and I'm still a helicopter parent. I'm still talking to them most every day. And my son is on the other coast, and he's headed off for Peru shortly. But we still, we text fairly frequently, and I have a bit of an idea of what he's doing. But it's allowing yourself, I think, to know what you really want and own what you want. It's okay. It doesn't matter how crazy it seems to other people. It doesn't matter how difficult it seems. Even if you get most of the way there, or part of the way there, it's allowing yourself to have a direction that is a sort of North Star for you. And for me, the career stuff was like, yeah, yada, yada. Yeah, okay. Yeah. It was family that really was my obsession, my main deal.
Yeah. And I like how you said, like, you had a goal, you knew what you wanted, and you kind of made all of your decisions based on that, because I think it takes some of the self-doubt out of it, because you're like, this is what I want. So if that aligns, if this decision aligns with me getting there, then it's a bit easier.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah. I would like to pivot a little bit and talk about your health journey. Like, how did it start, and how did you get into this health kick?
Well, and I've already told you that I lost my mother early in life. And so, and that affects everything you do from that moment on. When you lose a parent early, especially your mother, I adored her. We were very close, and she was a great mom and so on, but she had this chronic kidney disease, and that took her. So I grew up with this very prominent in my life. And then when I got my diagnosis, because I had a very big baby, my son was 10 pounds, and that typically is a tip off that you have gestational diabetes, which apparently I did. And in those days, they didn't give you the test. They didn't, it was kind of like, oh yeah, you probably, and they said to me, you will probably develop type 2 diabetes when you are in your 40s. So when I reached my 40s, yes, it's true, I did. I started asking, and they would go, well, you're not overweight, and you're fine, you're healthy, it's all good. I had to beg somebody to finally give me a test, which I can't even remember if it was in fact a hemoglobin A1C back in those days. But I want everybody who's listening to know that when you are in your early 40s, you need to have this test. Guys, women, you need to start looking at your blood glucose over a period of time, which is what that test does, to see how you're doing. Because if you are drifting off into type 2 diabetes territory, the sooner you know that, the sooner you can correct your course and fix it. And you can fix it. We were told it's a progressive disease and it just gets worse. And, the older you get, well, here I am, I'm 76. You don't see me in a cot, with tubes and so on. You can do an enormous amount. You are responsible for beating this. You can reverse it, and you can manage it. And that's what I want for everybody. And the way you reverse it and manage it is the same way you reverse and manage heart disease and a lot of other things, my journey through all this health stuff winds up, the answers are so simple, Marie. It's and we're bombarded these days with all this information about these diets and these ways of living and these exercise things, and you've got to do 4 of these and 10 of these and 20 minutes of this, and you got to journal, and you have to do. And I am here to tell you, and you'll be relieved to know, that it's much simpler than that. It's eat real food, whole food, mostly plants, not too much. And I'm quoting Michael Pollan, great author. If you've read his stuff, he writes really wonderful things about food. And all that is, eat real food, mostly plants. It's not hard. That's the deal. And when you think about it, all the talk about paleo and keto and everything, think about what your paleo ancestors really were dealing with. Let's focus on the women right now. What were they doing? Were they running down animals? No. Were they eating all the time? No. Were they foraging for greens? And yes. And fruits? And yes. Were they eating when they could? Yes. Were they going without food for periods of time? Yes, they were. We are hardwired not to be eating all the time. And we are hardwired to be sleeping deeply in a dark place that's perhaps cold. And when you just put together those really simple things, and I've learned so much interesting stuff in the last few years because we have the internet, and we've got all these courses we can take and so on, and all these books we can read. We can just press a few buttons and we've got books in front of us, and wow, that is magical. One of my new favorite words is autophagy. You like it?
What does that mean?
It's pretty good. It's your cells' ability to cleanse themselves. Again, as women, I think we kind of have a special relationship with housework, and your body needs to do a certain amount of housework. It has to clean house. And in order for it to do that, you need to stop stuffing food in your mouth at a certain point, empty out, and let this autophagy take place. It's magical. And I didn't learn until fairly recently that the only time your body can heal itself is when you are in deepest sleep. Mm-hmm. So think about the implications of that. Those of us who never sleep well, never sleep long enough, maybe never sleep deeply enough. And there's a lot of evidence now that that's where Alzheimer's and some other dementia related things come from. It affects heart disease, it affects diabetes, because your body needs to not only rest, but clean house. And that's how it does it. So all the talk lately about intermittent fasting, it sounds very trendy. All that means is you can skip a meal. It's fine. We were told as diabetics that we should eat all day long, all the time, small meals, frequently. And no, the evidence is coming back now that no, that's not true. It's really beneficial to not eat at times. And there are different ways to do that. And I don't present myself as the expert on exactly how long or whatever. But you can definitely skip a meal now and then and benefit from it because your body needs to clean itself. So I'm loving this whole new world of science-based nutrition because it gives us this enormous power, girls, to not be sick, to be really strong and to stay on our feet and not spend all of our money and energy trying to fix ourselves. And so many women, for reasons, we don't have time to go into them here, but so many women don't have a good relationship with food. It's scary. It's the enemy. It's, we're overweight, or we're underweight, whatever. We've got bad skin. So I would encourage all of you fellow sisters working on their badass selves to think about your fuel and think about making that a bit of a priority, not because you're eating too much or whatever, but because you deserve the very best, high test, high octane, nutrient dense food that you can possibly get, so that you've got the energy to do what you want to do in life. And so that your energy, your decisions and so on are not all taken up just staying on your feet. And many of us have issues, health issues that, we may not have control over, but the ones that you do have control over, take control, do it. So that means nothing in a bag or a box, basically.
So,
and I know that sounds harsh.
Yeah, I think sometimes we struggle with that, like doing stuff for ourselves.
Yeah.
It's so easy to do something for everybody else, for
everybody,
family, for everybody around you, people at work, instead of like focusing on ourselves. How do we start to improve our relationship with food?
Well, think of it as, get my book. First of all, that's why I wrote the book. I want people, particularly women, to understand how wonderful food is when you eat whole food, real food, mostly plants. We in America, we've been eating the standard American diet, the SAD diet, for decades now. And we have been the victims, if you will, a little dramatized, but we are all addicted to sugar. And that's not metaphorical, that is literal. Sugar is addictive, highly addictive. It's more addictive than heroin. And if I said to you, Marie, I think I want to cut back on my heroin, what would you say?
Give it up.
You'd say, drop that stuff like a hot rock to it. Get the help you need, drop it. And so I want that for you. I want you to quit sugar, and I want you to know that there are these great substitutes now, new ones you may not have tried. They are natural, they're yummy. And my book is about how to eat fabulous food, donuts, pancakes, brownies, with no sugar, no oil added, no flour, no processed flour, just good whole food, nut butter, pumpkin, real cocoa, real food. And so you begin to just discriminate. Okay, am I eating real food? What am I eating here? What's my habit? So if you're eating pizza in front of Jimmy Kimmel at night, I want you to quit that right now. Because processed flour is just like sugar as far as your body is concerned. You get the same insulin bump, and you get the same energy problem, and you get the same lack of nutrients. And if you're eating processed meats like salami and pastrami and those things, known cancer causers, sorry, they just are. All the research is there. And if you eat this once or twice a year, no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the habits that we have. And here's another one that may be shocking. You ready?
Yeah.
I don't want you to eat alone. I don't want your kids eating one thing and grandma eating one thing and Papa eating another thing and weird Uncle Al eating a thing. I want you all eating at the same table from the same food. And the way to do that is to make it whole food, good food, and to make sure that your kids are helping you grow it and cook it and clean it up. So many parents now are so busy hauling their kids all over the place to do lessons here and baseball there and so on. And they're missing maybe the most important thing in their little lives, which is table culture. Who are my parents? Who's my family? How do I have a conversation at a table? I have met so many families where the kids literally don't know how to eat with utensils because they've been driving through. They've been eating out of a bag their whole little lives because there wasn't time, right? And so I know this is a crazy quest, but I'm hoping maybe somebody out there will hear me and go, maybe I hate baseball. Jimmy hates baseball. Maybe we really don't need to do that, or Mandarin or trombone or whatever it is. Maybe we actually need to sit and talk at the dinner table. Maybe we need to have a conversation with each other and learn how to argue in a good civil way. All right. That's where I learned how to argue, how to defend myself. I had a big brother and a big sister that were smarter and better educated and so on, but I had to hold my own at the table. That's a skill that you don't learn in the back of a car. Right. And so many of our kids are in the back of the car with their phone, and you don't know what they're learning because it's on TikTok or whatever. So, and of course, nobody brings electronics to the table in grandma's house here. I want to say that part of being badass is being grounded in solid table culture, if you can possibly do it. Try not to have that be the thing that you throw out of the Conestoga wagon in your pursuit of whatever. And this is an age thing to some degree, because people my age, of course we grew up at the table. We didn't have all these other things, these temptations. But I want to put this to families who are younger and dealing with this now. What are you losing when you don't eat at the table with the people you love and the people you like? Paul Thorne, one of my favorite swamp rockers, talks about how you really don't like about half the people you love, but you need to sit at the table with them anyway, don't you? I mean, how else do we learn to get along with people we don't particularly like? Right?
Great time to learn, yes.
Yeah, we need to do that.
So good. So let's end with the tip to encourage women who are in the arena fighting for the life that they want.
Oh boy. Hang in there, girls. One tip, just one. I only get one. One, know that you don't even know how powerful you are, how wonderful you are till later. You will find out later. But right now, you just have to be your own cheering squad. You've got to be your own promoter. Later on, it'll get easier. Being as old as I am, it's so freeing, girls. So freeing in so many ways. So please, I want you to live this long and much longer so that you can be this free and have this much fun. It's not just when you're young, it's when you're older that you can really blast out and have some big time fun, because you don't give a shit anymore about so many things. It's great.
So how can we get Brownies for Breakfast, your book, and how can we connect with you?
Well, easy. LynneBowman.com. Just spell it LYNNEBOWMAN.com. Go on there, and it's got all my social media and everything. And I would encourage you to sign up on my list. That's Lynne's list. And then I will send you additional recipes. I don't do it often, but I like to stay in touch with folks who have the book and are working through it and want to make the recipes. And I like to hear it. I like that feedback. It's great. So contact me for sure. There's a contact form on the site. You can contact me through my Instagram or Facebook, YouTube videos. They're out there. And yes, I'm giving parental advice and cooking advice and advice you didn't even know you wanted, but there it is. So please do get in touch. The book is available on Amazon. But here's what I would love for you to do. If you have an independent bookseller that you want to support, and I am all about that, go in and ask for the book, Brownies for Breakfast, a cookbook for diabetics and the people who love them. Just say Brownies for Breakfast. And if they say, oh, no, I don't have that, go, oh my God, it's blowing up. You don't have it? You got to have it. And they will order it for you through their wholesaler, Ingram Spark, which is carrying the books. So whether you order it on Amazon, give me a review. Got some really great reviews from people, and that gives my life meaning. And you can only review it on Amazon if you've bought it on Amazon. That's another thing they do. Get hold of the book if you can, because it's written to make you happy. And I hear from people that it does make them happy, because all of a sudden you kind of see food in a different way. You know, it's easy. It's not expensive. You can do this. Your fuel. It's huge.
Thank you so much, Lynn. You've been a total badass, and I've enjoyed hearing your story.
I've loved being here yakking with you. Thank you, Maria.
And with that, we'll end our show. To all the badass women out there staying in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, own it and get after it.
Now that you've listened to this episode of Ordinary to Badass, we want to hear from you. Go to our website, ordinarytobadass.com/podcast, and submit your own experience on how you took your life from ordinary to badass, and get the chance to be on a future Spotlight episode of the show. That's ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. While you're waiting for the next episode of the show, wipe off the sweat, dust off the dirt, and get back in the arena.